Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to World Sprint Championship Season 2. We're back from the mid-season break, and tonight you join us in Algarve, Portugal. Max, you're alongside. Once again, good to have you. How are you feeling about tonight? How are you feeling about this track? First thoughts.
Yes, hello everybody. Pleasure to be back once again, of course, after the week's hiatus. And yeah, I'm quite excited for this evening. You know, Portugal, the Portimao circuit in the Algarve. It's a very fun circuit, and it's a circuit that can invite plenty of overtaking. But it's also a big challenge as well, isn't it, Ben? Some of these corners, especially likes of turn 8 and even the final corner on the tyres, especially through that final corner. It can play a big challenge, drop the rear slightly. It's a circuit which does require both the car and the driver to be in unison. So I think it should be quite an eventful evening.
Yeah, it's got a lot of elevation and certain points, and it's a very sharp track. You really need to be on your A game, and as you say, you need to have that synergy between yourself and the car. Trust the platform that's underneath you, and you'll do just fine. Now, we have got quite an interesting development this evening, as a couple of things have happened. One is that we aren't seeing a couple of familiar faces. Now, LMU had a big update, of course, going into 1.0, and they've had a couple of hotfixes since, but there have been some bumps along the way, and for that reason, we're not seeing a couple of our mainstays. We're not seeing Moffat, we're not seeing Starkey tonight, which is a bit of a shame, and I know that that is affecting a couple of things with GRDC as a whole, but we'll talk about that a little bit later as we get towards the later stages of the broadcast. But the other side is that we have a couple of wildcards that are going to be joining us for the evening. We're going to go quickly trackside, as we are going to quickly look at Barham, who is the last driver on track, but we do have a couple of friendly faces, and specifically Wyatt Spencer, who's joining in the LMP2s. You can see him, he's setting up with his headset now, his VR headset. I've never tried racing with a VR headset, but it must feel so surreal, doesn't it?
It must. I've never tried it either, but of course you feel like you're actually there, and of course, especially with the rig as well, it just makes everything so much more immersive. Just you ain't got the movement unless you've got a moving rig, and then you're fully immersed into the scene. But yeah, for Wyatt, it must be very cool and very like immersive. But then on the other hand, as well, Ben, it must be such a huge challenge because everybody else, of course, they've got a static game feed. They get of course, the radar and everything in their set positions. It stays where it is. And then when you're, of course, in the VR, you don't get that. You're constantly having to look around yourself. So it makes things a little bit more challenging, and it also can just make things like breaking into corners a little bit more difficult.
Yeah, certainly more daunting. You really are. I think immersion is the word of the day here, because you are really in the hot seat. You're not getting any additional feedback beyond what is literally physically present with you in the car. Though, as we've got a few drivers getting themselves prepped out here and getting themselves ready to go. Of course, we got the return of the roving reporter, and so if there are any breaks in at my comms, I say I was not 100% last night on the recovery, but they're still not 100% quite there, so I may occasionally take a couple of seconds where Max takes the lead. But here we go, we can see multiple cars making their way out. Say Cook just overtaking 40 right here, as everyone is in a mad dash to get qualifying out the way. And one might notice as well that we're no longer isolated in qualifying. Everyone is out there in each other's visual, in each other's presence.
Yeah, they certainly are, and that will make things a little bit more challenging, trying to find that space on the circuit, and it could also lead to potentially some moments of miscommunication where two drivers are on a lap in two different classes, and then some contact occurs. So yeah, it's very interesting to see how this now plays out, and of course, crucially for the hypercars, they've got to make sure they make their way through the traffic and try find at least as much clear space as they possibly can, and try get to this front of the queue as quickly as possible, so they somewhat have a full lap of then being able to keep it on the road. And of course, have a clean circuit in front of them and set the quickest lap time possible. Of course, only 5 of them this evening, unfortunately, with Moffat. That means we ain't got the Valkyrie anymore, so we ain't got that beautiful sounding Aston Martin. But everybody else in the hypercar division, they're going to have to try and get that clean lap, and whoever does it the best is surely going to take pole position here.
Yeah, so all about just getting that sort of clean flow and getting almost into that transient flow state, just riding the waves of the circuit. I don't really have any other way to describe it. I was trying to find words, but it really is about going with the flow of the circuit. It is both simultaneously very stop-starts, but also you can get a really fluid motion, particularly in that final sector before the start-finish straight. You have got such a neat complex of corners, and you work that together right, it feels like racing Nirvana. It's as close as you're going to get.
Yeah, it certainly is. Once you're all hooked up, and especially through this middle sector, if you're able just to get it right, get the car set up right, and just hook it up nicely, it honestly is one of the most satisfying feelings probably known to man, because it is just such a good feeling you get. And I wouldn't be surprised actually as well here if the LMP2 cars, especially in the middle sector, are on par, if not just as quick as those hypercars, because of course they're around about the same sort of speed through those corners, less horsepower of course in the LMP2 cars, and it makes them that little bit more agile and nimble. They're not as long either, so they have a little bit of better aerodynamic grip through the corners. So it could now mean that for the likes of Cook, Lovrek, or Sux, we could see them potentially splitting some of the hypercars apart from one another.
Let's find out. We can only see as those darty LMP2s are going to have their own set of tricks out here in Portugal. We have got some of the hypercar times now coming through, and you can see 34.7 leads from Bouquet, just ahead of Nepoteket, who themselves is on a defence, given that their potential position in the championship could be at risk. There's a lot riding on these next few runs, these next few rounds, because of course second half of the championship is going to mean that you're running out of chances to defend. And Bouquet, there's only 3 points in it, so Nepoteket's on high alert.
It certainly is. Of course, his perfect streak came to an end last time out in Sao Paulo, and it was double points as well, so it made it even more of a swing into Bouquet's favour. And I think this circuit is very much, I would say, like Brazil, where the first sector and the middle sector, the final sector, you have a couple corners and then it's just straight. And then the middle sector, very technical. And that's where, of course, Bouquet and that Peugeot just seem to be oh so strong at. And I think it will do very much the same here this evening as well. Petouche as well, he was quite quick in his Ferrari. Unfortunately made a few mistakes near the end of that race and unfortunately lost out, as Nepoteket's going to be making his way to the line now, and we'll see what he will set on this lap time. Of course, currently Petouche on a 33.4. Nepoteket to the line. Where will he go in his Porsche? So he crosses the line. He now displaces Petouche from the top of the table, and he goes 7/10 clear. But yeah, Nepoteket, he's going to want to fight back and make sure, even though his perfect streak is lost, he can pick up where he left off.
Yep, and that is going to be it, isn't it? It's just keeping momentum and keeping the pressure high. And we say this a lot, and we've said it a lot in previous rounds, but it really is about playing that longer game sometimes. We've got Riesrock just coming across the line. 39.8 is their time to beat. Now, they didn't get that on this run because Sux is in a sort of turnaround going to be the one to watch. We did have a bit of a question mark with the LMP2s. Of course, we've got the hypercars and other cars going around the track simultaneously, so not sure if that is fully intended on the second half. But we have got as well a bit of a battle between Sux and Lovrek. Now, these two have been squabbling and fighting for the title of LMP2 top dog, as well as Richard Cook being right in the middle, and with the 8-point difference from the lead. Lovrek is an interesting one for me, because I do think if he had a bit more consistency, then he would be right there in that championship fight.
Yeah, also what cost him as well is he wasn't there last time out again with that double points on offer at the halfway point of the season. And I think if he was there, just picked up a few points, he certainly could be a few, if not a couple points off Sux, or even that championship lead, and potentially snatched that away. Because of course, Sux made that late mistake. He went a lap down from Richard Cook nearly, and then Cook was just able to hold on to that momentum. We know Lovrek's just got that little edge over Richard. So if that was the other way around, you never know. Lovrek could have won that race, and we could be talking about him leading into here. But of course, he didn't attend, and that's the unfortunality of missing events like that, and especially it being double points as well. It can really just displace your championship challenge and put you on the back foot into the next round. And for Lovrek, he's got a big mountain to climb now, but it can still happen. And if Sux's form of second places continues and he's the one who capitalises on it, he certainly could be talking 3-4 rounds time of being 1 or 2 points behind Sux come that stage of the season.
Yeah, I certainly think he has the pace on tap to fight it with the top dogs. And the only thing that's let him down so far is, as you mentioned, just his presence in the championship thus far. He's mostly down on points, just down to the fact that he wasn't there for the double points round and for round 2. Or should we say round 1 specifically. Round 1 on SimGrid, by the way. So we've got our SimGrid for all of the tracking, and we're very happy with using them in the future. The first round is the sort of warm-up, the classification round, and the shakedown that was mandated for all drivers. So we've got with that coming out on the other side. Of course, we have got Algarve tonight, but many other rounds wait in the wings. We have got Spa after this. Then it's going to be Qatar, Kota, and Sebring to finish our 10-round official season. As well as, you never know, depending on what updates come, there might be more in the works too.
Yeah, there certainly could. Of course, 3 new tracks also being added ever so shortly with the European Le Mans Series update. They, of course, being Silverstone, Paul Ricard, and I've completely blanked on the other circuit. I don't know what one it is, Ben. What's the other circuit in that 3? It's Silverstone, Paul Ricard, and there's Circuit de Barcelona, Catalunya. That's it.
There you go.
I have just got it back. But yeah, there will certainly be some lovely additions, and getting Silverstone in hypercars or whatever cars that can be able to race on there, that would certainly be a sight to see, and to go to one of the most iconic venues in motorsport and potentially bring this championship there would certainly be a great addition to the calendar, potentially in the future seasons.
Yep, so we're going to add hopefully a couple more options to future calendars too. And with that, hopefully a little bit of a stability update, because that has introduced a couple of issues with some of our competitors, as we mentioned. Here's Cook making a spicy overtake around that BMW, just trying to get a bit of room out on the circuit. I do believe that was Dan Wilson. As Cook peels to the infield, crossing over that pit line, but wanting to get out of the way, of course, of the mainline runners as soon as possible, returning to the pits. Qualifying is officially over, and it's last chances for anyone who's still out on track. Bouquet in the Peugeot is going to be firing it out and through into the hairpin, right down to those low gears, try and power out. So that Peugeot, of course, being a very interesting concept, but that rear wing making it a little bit more stable on the back, a little bit more predictable at those higher speeds, because it's the rear wing, it's consistency at different angles. And one thing I sort of heard about and sort of noticed is apparently the Peugeot is a little bit pitch sensitive, so that rear end, depending on if there's wind or if you're sort of an incline or a decline, that can drastically affect how planted it is. That's an interesting note.
That is an interesting thing to know, especially at a circuit like this, where a lot of the corners are off camber and you're either going up a hill or going down a hill. So it could make that, as you could see through the final braking zone there, just how much it just slides under braking and getting the car rotated in. And that perfect timing was a key example of what you just mentioned about the pitch there, Ben. It was a corner going downhill, a little bit off camber, and it just didn't like it. It just did not hook up into the corner at all. And that's correlated in his sector times as well. He's a total of, in the final sector, he's 4 tenths off Mika Patush, and in a further 2 tenths off Sebastian Nepoteket as well, and he's around about where Hendrik de Vries is. So quite off the pace through that final sector. The same could be said as well in the middle sector, where he's 4 tenths behind Patush there too. So that Peugeot, unlike Brazil, where even though it's very similar with the turning and braking and the going up and downhill, it's just not seeming to like it here at Portimao, and unfortunately for him, he'll start third on the grid, and with his rival right in front of him second, and of course his other rival Petushin currently now on pole, it's certainly going to be all to play for in the hypercar field.
Yeah, well, the hypercards, I was trying to mix wildcard and hypercar there, but it's certainly going to be a sharp and small grid. But let's go through in sequence. First row, it's going to be Patush and Nepoteket taking first and second with a strong qualifying from the both. They're certainly bringing their A game. Bouquet and de Vries are going to be third and fourth on this one. Of course, sort of fated championship rivals brought together, and then Borgerson on the fifth spot. Before you have Roland Sukes taking top honours, but LMP2 out of the qualifying. Lovrek and Cook are going to be in your next row. That's in row 4, second and third, along with Richard Vickers and Alexis Weisrock in fourth and fifth. Final row, row 6 for the LMP2. It's going to be Wyatt Spencer, our wildcard for the evening, and Timothy Goya completing the order. Then you move on to the LMGT3s. It's Ramsey and Stijink. No Letonen apparently present here today. I've been told he's going to come back for next round. 14 and Di Catania are going to be in your second GT3 row, and then Iro Usuri along with Dan Wilson. I don't believe we are getting joined by Barham and Waldridge today. We'll just confirm that in a moment. But here you go. You can hear the engines as everyone is priming to get ready and go racing for another round of WSC.
Yes, they certainly are. Of course, it'll be the Ferrari of Mika Patush who will get us underway, heading to the green flag command. Hendrik de Vries, Richard Vickers and Timothy Goya are all electing to start from pit lane pretty much in this one. I know especially Vickers and de Vries are here because they did do qualifying lap times. But we'll see how Patush deals with this one. Of course, a very long run down into that first corner. It goes down and then up. It compresses at the bottom of the hill before you head into that first corner. So we'll see as the Ferrari makes his way to the start-finish line. Of course, different to how it is in F1 and the F1 titles. It was a little bit earlier down the straight. Here in LMU, it's at the end of the grid slot. So here we are then with Mika Patush. The green flag falls and we are go here in Portimao. It's a brilliant start there potentially from Bouquet, who tries to tuck into the slipstream of Nepoteket, who tries to dance now around the outside of Patush, but just not working out there. He's gone wide, inviting there Bouquet to the inside line. Gets the move done perfectly, does the Peugeot, and he moves himself up into that second place in the LMP2 field. Lovrek has been able to get that move away from Roland Sukes and now takes that race lead. In the LMP2 division, you can see the snaking to break the toe down into the turn 4 hairpin, but it is all as it was in GT3 with Ramsey and Franklin Stegnick leading that way. But crucially for Patush, he was able to hold on to that lead, and he got now Bouquet separating him from the Porsche.
Well, you can see as well that we got de Vries and Vickers right down at the bottom after starting from the pit lane. They're going to have a absolutely Herculean task making their way back up to the rest of their respective order. We don't have Goya joining us tonight, I don't think. I think that was a holdover from the sim grid, but there he goes, Nepoteket. Massive lockup as he heads to the top of that crest, and he's just taken a little bit too much. He's managed to recover it, but he's already looking shaky. I think he's overdriving the car. Either that, or there is a serious issue. He's going off the track left and right. He's conceding left, right, and centre. Borgerson's going to go even worse for him here, as it looks like he had a spin just heading into Sector 3.
Oh, disaster there for both Borgerson and Nepoteket. Of course, the Porsche, the mistakes have been starting to creep in over the past few rounds, and that was a big one. It's very easy to do that at the top of the compression at turn 11. Just easy to clinch that front brake as you're turning while braking. And unfortunately for him, he saw himself lock up and go straight on at the corner. Borgensen now with a big challenge to climb his way up through the field. And Hendrik de Vries, at the end of that one, has already dispatched all of the LMGT3 traffic. So at the front of the field is Mika Patouche from Mateo Bouquet, as they now squabble their way over the course of this next hour and 15 minutes. It should be a very interesting fight between the pair, of course, in that hypercar standings. A total of, if I can get the standings up properly, a total of 30 points separate the pair. And of course, if Patouche wins this race and is able to hold on to this, he takes a big chunk, not only out of Bouquet, but out of Nepoteket as well. And then game is really on for Patouche in that championship fight. And he's been super unlucky all season long.
Yeah, I think there's been an element of luck and also an element of momentum, because once you get into that winning form, that fighting form, it's very difficult to, well, let me start this from the other way around. It's very difficult to maintain, but it's also very easy to, if that makes sense. It's almost a paradox, because the more you win, the more confident you get. But if you get too confident, that's when you start to make silly mistakes, and then when you start to overcompensate for those mistakes. So it's a fine balance, it's a fine line that you tread when you're in that front-running position, and it can, like a house of cards, tumble down just as quickly as it was assembled.
Yeah, you certainly can. Like, all it takes is one mistake, and all of a sudden your confidence hits rock bottom, and you see yourself drifting further and further back, and it's really just hard to see, especially in this point of view as either a spectator or a caster, where you see someone who was in that fine form, a bit like a Nepoteket, and the mistakes slowly creep into their driving, and they're not the same driver as they were 2 to 3 races ago. And it really then does just dismantle their charge until they win again, and the confidence back at that high once more. So yeah, it's very difficult for these drivers to remain with high optimism and optimistic about their chances if they do have a poor run of form. A bit like what we saw from Patouche at the early start of the season, through no fault of his own, had 2 DNFs, and he got a 3rd place in the middle of that, so that could have boosted the confidence ever so slightly into round 4 before that 2nd DNF. But from that point, he's not really looked like, except from Imola where he was close to challenging but not really enough, he's not really looked like a driver that could win races. He's had the pace to be at the front, but he's never had that utmost consistency to win that race. And if he wants to start his championship and really take it to both the Peugeot of Bouquet and the Porsche of Nepoteket, he's going to need to start it now. And of course, at the moment, still holding that race lead, but we've seen him do this before. Take the race lead, then with 20 minutes to go, make a mistake, and it all goes tumbling down, and it goes from bad to worse.
Yep, and it's so disheartening sometimes to see a driver fall down and have that almost fall from grace, because you know what they're capable of, and on the sidelines you're almost screaming, saying like, you know you can do this, you know you can drive this hard and fight this well, but it's never that simple. It's the mental game, it's the pressure, it's the momentum that you built up and subsequently lost over the course of races. Oh, that's risky business there. There's Borgensen on the back of Roland, and you could see he's just barely angling for a space that was closing rapidly. He's trying to get that Ferrari around these two because he knows that once he opens the taps, he's going to be off into the distance, especially come straights.
Certainly will, but it shows how closely matched the LMP2s and the hypercars are, especially through this middle sector, because both Borgensen and de Vries are actually kind of struggling to get past the LMP2 traffic. And it just gives them that upper hand for now, but then once again, once you head to that main straight, Borgensen should absolutely breeze by on Sux and Lovrek. Can't count on the move from the man 2nd place in the LMP2 standings. I say that it's wide from Lovrek, and that now invites Sux to the inside line, heading into the final braking zone, and once again deep on the brakes, caught napping there was Roland Sux, put under pressure, and he crumbled at the first opportunity, and Roland Sux now takes that race lead away in the LMP2 division from Lovrek. But now with that slipstream, could we see Lovrek fight back against the Prema livery car?
Yeah, I was going to see a little bit of spice, a little bit of fight back, and these two are certainly duking it out. This is exactly what we were saying earlier. These two certainly have the championship level chops. One of them has it proven in the standings. The other has it on the back of their pace, but the numbers don't necessarily back it up. So I really want to see these two go at it, almost unencumbered, unchained by the situation of the championship. I just want to see quality racing, and so far these two have really brought that.
Yeah, it really is just what they're bringing to the table now. Lovrek, it took him a couple races to get up to speed, really, with Roland Sux. But over the past few races, I was about to say, he's really brought that challenge, and he looked to the inside into turn 8, was a bit hot on the brakes, and went into the side of Roland Sux, and that now sees Lovrek tumble down the order, and tumble well away from his championship rival, and it moves Richard Cook up into second place in the LMP2 division. And for Thomas Lovrek, that is not what he would have wanted at all, and now he's got a big task on his hand to try and claw his way back up through the field and to try bring that gap back down, as Richard Cook has actually made the move on Sebastian Borgensen. So it's all about Borgensen potentially blasting by the LMP2s. In that middle and just before the end of the final, start of the final sector, Cook has fought back and got that position away from him.
I think Borgensen really is the linchpin in this LMP2 fight right now. I think his presence, along with Lovrek and Sux being all in that confined space, I think that was what set things off ultimately. And even though Borgensen's going to get past now, he could prove to be a bit of a difficulty for Sux, as you mentioned it yourself earlier. These LMP2s, they're not so different from the hypercars. They follow fundamentally the same formula, a little bit more restrictive, a little bit less power, but they're also a lot easier to turn. They're a lot more agile, sometimes to their detriment. They can be a bit snappy, but in these tighter sections of the course, they can go punch for punch with the Ferrari. But saying that, Borgensen is not having a good time. He's going to actually be conceding the position as another Ferrari has tagged in. It's Hendrik de Vries.
Yeah, Hendrik de Vries, of course, starting from that pit lane, has already catched up to the back of Borgensen after making his way up and throughout that field. And he is now going to try and, of course, attack on Roland Sux and be able to get that position away from him. And for de Vries, the Dutchman, of course, he just seems to have the upper hand over Borgensen. He's been lacking a little bit of pace, has Sebastian, over the course of the season. And I think it's really showing here tonight. But yeah, the two LMP, well, the LMP2s and the hypercars, they somewhat follow the same formula. As you mentioned, just a bit more restricted in that LMP2 division on both engine power and the directions they can go with the fundamentals of aerodynamics. And of course, they're all in the same chassis as well. But for Borgensen, he's going to get past Richard Cook once again. But I wouldn't be surprised if we see Cook get in once more through that middle sector.
Yeah, it's all about opportunities now and picking your moments, most importantly. So Sux is up ahead right now. He has got de Vries behind him, as Nepoteket has displaced him for the time being. But it's about picking your moments, and particularly around here at Portugal. Whoa.
Oh, Dan Wilson has just had a spin and been collected there by, I think it was it? No, sorry, Dan Wilson did spin. I think it was Barham who spun. Yeah, it was Barham who spun and then got collected by Dan Wilson at turn 8. Some unfortunate contact there between the two BMWs. I think it was just a bit hot on the brakes from Barham, and then Wilson nowhere to go as a pack of cars just all merged onto the scene, and last minute the BMW just couldn't avoid it. And I think also John Waldrich was also involved and may have tagged Gary Barham as well, but that was big contact there for the pair of them, and I wouldn't be surprised if there's substantial damage on all three of those cars.
Yep, and certainly going to be having a massive impact around here, Portugal in particular. When you combine the characteristics of the circuit with any kind of aero damage, not even major, even sometimes minor aero damage, with the amount of corner variation in terms of angle, in terms of altitude variation, in terms of camber, etc. Even the slightest bit of, even just losing a single canard on the front of the car can really upset the car in certain situations. So you've got to be so mindful of how you react when you do get damage and how you manage it.
Yeah, it certainly is. Of course, you're gonna try and keep your car nice and tidy, but even with that damage, it then means you have to just brake that little bit earlier into corners. You hemorrhage time all the way around the lap, but you can still be fast with it because you can make up time at different places, and potentially, if say it's right-hand side damage onto the car, it won't affect you through those right-hand corners because, of course, there's not really as much aerodynamic load heading through those corners. Of course, it'll be all on the left-hand side, so you don't lose too much time through there, and it's all about just potentially repairing it as well in that pit stop phase and just adding a few more seconds onto your pit time, but then you're going to be speedy quick once again. Or then it's just a case of getting used to it, and once you're used to it, you pretty much get back onto the pace as what you were without the damage. So it really is a big factor in this race about the damage and the aerodynamic philosophy from that. And also we're seeing at the front of the field, Petouche and Bouquet squabbling through the traffic. And this time around, Bouquet just not close enough for a move. I saw last time around there was a little bit of chopping and changing to the inside and outside from the Peugeot, but he's certainly posing a threat to that Ferrari's lead.
And right now, it's going to be a lot of pressure, and the traffic is certainly not helping. You almost saw for a second Petouche panic, as there was one of the Mustangs there almost boxing him in out of that first complex. And that's going to be Bouquet taking full advantage, trying to pressure him into a narrow line to try and get that switchback. You can see right there, he's gone for it. Contact made, tank slapper on the rear axle as they both try to get on the throttle as fast as possible. And it's a heated drag race. They're both going to be going for it, bring in 110%. One of them is going to yield in the end. That is going to be Petouche, but not without challenge. Bouquet once again to the inside, snap at the rear, trying to once again out-drag the Ferrari as they both head through. That's Craig Jones into Portimao corner now, aptly named, and it's emblematic of a beautiful fight that we've had thus far. Bouquet is going to retreat back for now, but a well-staged challenge. That was almost textbook. You set him up with a narrow attack, switch back on him out to the exit of the corner, but it was just a couple of bits of contact, just a little bit too much push. They weren't fully able to keep the cars stable and seal the deal.
Yeah, just wasn't able to pull off that move. Was Bouquet, but could he get it done now heading into turn one? I don't think he'll be close enough with this slipstream just yet. And we'll see as he heads down into that first corner. No, just not going to be close enough for now. But if these two keep squabbling, it could now bring Nepoteket into play. And that could be really good for the Porsche driver if he's able to do so, and could really help him with this battle for the lead. As we now head down into turn 5 once more. Are we going to see the move from the Peugeot like we saw last time around? And will Petouche defend? No, neither going for that move. But yeah, it was once again just that pitch affecting that Peugeot through turn 8, off camber as well. So it's difficult to get the traction down. And unfortunately for Bouquet, wasn't able to get that move done. But he really is showing that intent and showing he means business to get this race lead away.
Well, I respect Bouquet showing a bit of restraint on this lap. He's known that that corner doesn't quite work for him, or at least the subsequent battle showed that maybe he needs to give it a couple of laps. So rather than attacking it like a blunt object, rather than hammering, take a bit of time for himself to collect, as he was making just as many mistakes in terms of jumping on the throttle too quickly, too much throttle. He was getting a little bit jumpy just as Petouche was, so taking a bit of a moment to regain that composure I think is essential, and that's going to be instrumental to him keeping the pressure high.
Certainly is going to be instrumental to keeping that pressure on, as there's no real other battles further down the field. Actually, there is a couple, should I say, but in the LMP2 field at least. There's one between Lovrek and Richard Cook, and then you've also got one that was brewing between Stegning and also Jordan 40, but I think he's dropped that little bit further back, as Stegning potentially made a small error, because that gap now 6.4 seconds. It was only about 9/10 of a second a few corners ago, as Lovrek still trying that move. Now on to Richard Kirk, of course, wanting to fight back into that second place. They've dropped 6 seconds away from Borgensen, so they've dropped 12 seconds away from Roland Sux, because Borgensen's an extra 6 seconds away. And it just shows how quick Sux is, that once he's relieved of that pressure, he's able to even beat a hypercar in a race and be able to pull away from a hypercar. That just shows how fast he is and how all those hours, yes, it was on R Factor 2, have really helped him and just allowed him to really take charge and really help with his championship challenge.
I mean, you've still got a 2-lap difference between Borgerson and Sooks' best time, 35.1 versus 36.8. So while it's not necessarily on exact paper, what is really showing here for Sooks is his consistency and his overall, just in general, really high pace, because he's still half a second faster than Lovric, the next closest time. And he is putting that in lap after lap after lap. That's the big time difference here. It's not that he is miles and miles away from the next LMP2 car. He is slightly faster, yes, but it's the fact that he's able to keep such a high level for this much time. That's what's the big factor is here. And we're only 15 minutes in, sure, but he's already proven himself as why he's currently sitting atop of that order.
It certainly is, and he'll keep getting stronger and stronger, and if he's able to narrow, edge out those mistakes that he's made in the past 2 rounds, he certainly could see himself extend that lead once again. Of course, nobody in this championship anymore has a perfect streak. That came to an end the last time out in Brazil. It was Nepoteket who won every round since round 1, and it was, of course, Bouquet who took that away from the Porsche driver. So no one will finish this season with a 100% race winning streak, or utter domination, should I say. And it brings everything into a bit of a level playing field, and now means that everybody has an equal opportunity to get those wins. As Richard Cook to the inside there of Di Catania, some contact made between the LMP2 and the GT3, and that's now a Lovric to go around the outside. Just wasn't close enough for the move, but this LMGT3 traffic is really going to be affecting Richard Cook as he locks up into turn 3 as well. So we head through turn 4 now. This could give the run to Lovric, but no, he also gets held up slightly from Di Catania. And that was really unfortunate there for Cook, and I wouldn't be surprised if he now has a little bit of damage onto that Orica LMP2 car, as he'll now have to struggle with getting that car rotated into corners.
Yeah, it's just a little bit of an unfortunate placement from his car there. He just didn't really have an opportunity to get out of the way, not knowing where to go. He did kind of fire it down that inside a little bit, hoping they had more room, but there's Lovric. He's fully spun it once again, and he nearly collected that Ferrari GT3 car. That could have been massively dangerous. Luckily, quick thinking on the Ferrari's part to get out of the way and fast. And all the time we've been going through that, we witnessed a bit of a mini battle as Waldridge was overtaken by Barham in the Roving Reporter. So it's kicking off all sides of the circuit. We've got Bouquet, who is once again staging a challenge onto Patouche. He's closed that gap to within 0.2 of a second, so he's certainly sniffing out for those chances now. He's got himself together, he's got collected, and he's saying, right, time for the next round, time for a TKO, let's make it.
Yeah, he's going to be looking for it, but I've got a bit of LMP2 traffic in the way, and that's going to really affect Bouquet, and nearly into the back there. Had to really react to that one. Of course, was behind Patouche. Couldn't really see. I think that could be Wyatt Spencer potentially in that LMP2 car, and was nearly close to some contact and potentially could have seen the Peugeot out of the race. But now as we head down through the final corner, we'll go in a few moments' time. Is Bouquet finally close enough to get that move done and be using all the battery he can from that hypercar that he's saved through the middle sector, use the slipstream and just try his best to close up to the back of the Ferrari, but we know it's quite a nimble car in the straight lines. And for Bouquet, once again, just having to sit behind. But this is where he's strongest, I think, Ben, through turns 1, 2 and 3, and he's able to really lunge it into turn 5. But once again, traffic getting in the way. I think that might just put him out of a little bit of a challenge into turn 5.
It's a coin flip when it comes to traffic, because it can either benefit you or it can benefit your opponent, and it all sometimes is a matter of sometimes as little as 10 meters. That could be the margin. I mean, look at it right here. You have got Patouche on the inside. Nepoteket could be, say, like coming up soon if these two keep squabbling. But right now, Bouquet is just trying to see exactly how Patouche reacts, trying to keep an acute awareness of his surroundings, because he knows even a completely innocuous GT3 car or LMP2 car could come in and royally mess up with things. I mean, look, earlier we had the LMP2 was on the inside of Portimao corner, and that caused him to briefly have to switch, and that could have been the difference between him gaining the position and him staying behind. As we're seeing now, we've got more cars coming through.
Yeah, we now see who will come out on top. As you can see, as Patouche had to go to the inside there. That's of Dan Wilson, and nearly was some contact made once more. But yeah, it really is a flip of the coin, and it's all about where you find it. And with this 6/7 gap now, Patouche could get through into turn 1 on a piece of traffic, and then Bouquet could be held up for another 1 to 2 corners after that. And it really is just a massive guessing game. You've got to get lucky, and it will even itself out eventually. Of course, at times where you find traffic and the other person doesn't, there'll be times where they find traffic and you don't. So it does all even out and have a level playing field, as Bouquet is really confident onto the brakes into turn 3, and that's what gives him this superb run. Now up the hill through turn 4, the yellow flag somewhere on the road, not sure who that would be for, as we head down now into turn 5. Is Bouquet going to go for the move? No, but he's so confident compared to the Ferrari on the brakes into turn 2, and that's where he makes up that time, where I reckon if he's maybe a 10th closer heading into there on the exit of turn 1, he certainly could see himself take that race lead away.
I mean, hairpins are ample opportunity for overtakes anyway, so having a driver who's that confident on the brakes is just going to multiply that advantage 3, 4, 5, 10-fold. And that Peugeot, for all of our talk of pitch sensitivity, he's still going to have the faith in the car to say, let's do it, let's go for it, down the inside, down the hill. But again, it's the floatiness of that rear end, it's the skating rear axle that's going to be his undoing just as soon as he asserts an advantage, whether that's too much throttle or just not able to plant the power that he's normally putting while steering. Bouquet is going to just as quickly lose the spot, and more traffic coming up. Don't forget as well, it's the faster cars' job to make it work. These hypercars have got to make sure they are going out of their way to make a safe overtake. And as these two rejoin their battle, they're almost dancing around. It's like an elaborate dance and a ballet of horsepower making their way through as they go into the next lap and into the next phase of the race. Just look at them prance around each other, apex to apex, corner to corner.
Yeah, it's just beautiful stuff from these drivers. Of course, racing is not only just about beating your opponent, it's also, as you mentioned, a dance as well. You've got to be in unison, you've got to know what each other are doing. It is a pairs game when you are attacking or defending, and it all comes down to that synchronization, as there's Richard Vickers going round in his cream egg livery, unfortunately cracking under the pressure. That Frank Stegning in the GT3 car was putting him under a little bit for Richard there, which is really unfortunate to see, as Bouquet still getting closer. But I think what Bouquet does here as well, Ben, is he backs off slightly, cools down the engine, saves the tyres, and then another 2 to 3 laps later, pushes once more and tries to get that move done.
Yeah, I think there really is an ebb and flow to Bouquet's strategy with this race. You've got to mention, and I say, good that you did mention the tyres as well. And it is going to be a case of you go for a push, it doesn't work. You recover, you recuperate, you try again. It's managing your virtual energy, managing your tyres, your temps. There's not just go for the overtake, go for the move. There is many more layers to this operation for any driver, any keen driver who wants to maximize their performance on a race weekend. I mean, even look at them now. Bouquet's right tucked up to the back of that Ferrari, but he's going to be running hot as well. He's going to have all the wake and the exhaust gases and all of the dirty air coming off of that 499P, but they're still going to be going wheel to wheel, going at it, and you can see Bouquet of two minds as Patouche was quick to try and close that door into turn 2.
That is, but I think this could certainly be Bouquet's opportunity, because he just seems so strong in this first part of the lap. You can see Patouche having to defend to the inside as aggressively as possible, but now Bouquet, the Peugeot, darts to the inside line. Can he pull this one off the Ferrari? Of course, we'll hold it round the outside. We'll now be on the inside for turn 7. I think Bouquet might just have to give way or potentially go for the up and under. He does just allow the Ferrari back through. But it is super close between the pair, and for Bouquet, that was his best chance yet, and unfortunately just wasn't able to get it done. And with all those exhaust fumes being in the wake, that dirty air as well, it's not going to help his engine or his tyres, and he really has to think about potentially over the course of the next couple laps just regrouping, backing off, cooling everything down, getting the best engine power possible down that main straight, and going for it in around about 5 minutes time again.
I really like to think that drivers tell their personalities and they tell their stories through their cars. And what I'm reading right now from Bouquet is, okay, I've had a few attempts at this and it hasn't worked. Time to up the ante, and he's done exactly that here. You can see how aggressively, arguably from about a lap and a half ago, he was really going for those moves, sticking right to the back of Patouche and going harder, 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 more to the inside, more defensive, more attacking moves. He's just going and turning that dial up to 9, 10, 11. He's just not holding back anymore, and you can read that through the car and the dynamics and the way that he is placing himself to really put Patouche under the microscope. Now, high risk and high reward, but it also means high consequences if it doesn't pan out. And you can see right here, Bouquet has fallen out of that magic 1 second gap where you consider two drivers to be in contention. So it was a big gamble, and I think tensions boiled, but ultimately he's now going to have a lot of recovering to do.
Certainly is. He's going to have to bring that gap now back down once more and see what can be delivered. He certainly has just upped the ante more and more, and he's just seeing how Patouche does things. Of course, we've still got a long way in this race to go, and he could certainly see himself have more opportunities. And I think he's just trying to work out Patouche, what he does, how he plays, how he defends. And once he gets that nailed, once he has a set strategic plan, he'll then go for that move. Alistair Ramsey as well, quickly to mention, took pole position and has absolutely just dominated the competition so far in the LMGT3 category. 7 seconds clear of
I'm sorry
Jordan 40.
I'm sorry to cut you off, Max. We're on board with Wyatt Spencer right now, and he's fully focused. He's fully in there, and he's really just locked in on that racetrack to the point where he had a bit of a visitor in the room, and it's trying to make sure it doesn't get disturbed. So absolutely love it. I know this feeling. I know this feeling. I've had to do the exact same thing when sharing a room and someone's racing. So that sort of half crawl across the ground and sort of curling around, I know the feel. I've done the exact same. I salute you. Sorry. We went to the roving reporter and that just caught my eye. I couldn't look away.
Oh, Wyatt. Oh, I feel that same pain. I've had that happen to me before, and you try your best to keep out of the way. It's actually, is Richard Cook coming to pit lane on purpose, or has he retired? Because it didn't seem he was in
he's
pit
coming
lane
out of the
No,
pits.
he has just come into pit lane. I just didn't see him tumble down the order until just now. And I think that could have been a little bit of desync on the game's end, that it's only just shown him into pit lane. But he's coming back out once again. He'll be behind Spencer, and we'll see what he can do. Quite an early pit stop there, actually, Ben, from Cook. We usually see the LMP2s box around about the 35 to 30 minute mark, so 10 minutes earlier so far from Richard. Maybe an alternate strategy to try and bring this gap down to 6 in front.
I think maybe he's looking at his current position and he just wants to get some clean air. He wants to stay out of the way of the other competitors and hope to gain some time back over the course of the rest of this race. I think that's honestly the best thing he can do. So an alternate strategy, I think that works quite well in this case. Cook, he's certainly got a chance here, and he has the pace, 37.6, remember. So that will be his ultimate gain. Just get out of the way, focus on putting down the best times and the best racing that you possibly can, and then you will see that payoff when the rest of the cars come in.
Yeah, that certainly is what he's going to try. He's going to try to go for a big undercut here. Is Richard Cook. Use that clean air to his advantage and see what he can do, as now Patouche is trying to get past one of the LMP2 cars. That's Thomas Lovrek, who he's trying to get by and has just not been able to get it done into turn 8. And this could now mean he comes under all sorts of pressure from Bouquet once more. And this is where the traffic can help you if you're the car chasing. But Bouquet has to go really wide through turn 10 as we head into turn 11, though. It's actually invited him to go up the inside line for the Peugeot. Just won't be enough as GT3s now get out of their way. And Patouche, that's close to the back of Waldridge there, and nearly into the back of the Porsche he goes. It really is now just a game of chess. And I'm expecting these guys in probably around about the 20-minute mark. Of course, each car can do a certain amount of the distance, some not as long as others. And I think that could be another place where Bouquet can get past Patouche, is in that strategy front. potentially go for a move in the dying few laps, or potentially just box that few laps early like we've seen from Cook, use that fresh air and try and get the undercut.
I think a variation in strategy could be a big option here, and for a lot of drivers, not just the ones that we've already seen. And I'm particularly looking to the GT3s, who have largely been outside of the spotlight for the time being, but there's still some heroics to be mentioned. I mean, 40, he's currently second place. He's got his own pocket of the track, as Ramsey has fully gone off into the distance. The main takeaway I see for a lot of the GT3s is, particularly when you have as chaotic and closely fought of a hypercar and LMP2 grid as we have, I think they're just trying to keep their heads down, put some solid racing in. They had some early initial squabbles, and in fact we are seeing something here. This is Vasuri and Waldridge going for a bit of combat here into the next sector, but by and large they're just fully spaced out across the track, and they don't want to really interact too much, just want to get this race through.
Yeah, they certainly do, and here comes Vasuri now to the inside line through turn 10. They've got Nepoteket all over the back of them, trying to capitalise on this squabbling and, of course, be able to get past these back markers, and you don't want to lose too much time to the likes of Bouquet and Petouche in front. And look at the gap now that these two have over Nepoteket. It's 17.1 seconds between Petouche and the Porsche. Unfortunately for Nepoteket, he's just seemed to lack the pace since the very beginning of this race. And he's, ever since that lockup, I think he's been suffering with a few vibrations, potentially locking up more and more and more as the laps tick by. And it's just really unfortunately hurt his race overall. And for the man who's leading the championship for so long, if it finishes as it is, he's going to see himself, unfortunately, lose out on that championship lead for the first time this season to Matteo Bouquet.
Yep, and that could be a very scary prospect, considering that the amount of rounds is rapidly dwindling. Remember, we are halfway through the season, so your championship protagonists are certainly set in stone. You're not going to see any major variation at the top end, and it's going to be a much closer quarters fight from this point on. So any kind of upset, any kind of switch in that... Oh, no, Waldridge with the spin! Just in the background as Vasuri finally gets that move round on the previous. You can see cracking under the pressure, but everyone is under that same microscope now, because every match and every lap counts. There's Dan Wilson also going for a spin out of Portimao.
Yeah, unfortunately there from Wilson. I just saw that on board with Bouquet. And unfortunately for the BMW, he spins in front of the Peugeot, and that might have just cost Bouquet a little bit of time. Of course, had to react to that, seeing the BMW really lose momentum and slide off to stage right. And he might have just let off the throttle ever so slightly, or just tap the brakes to make sure he don't go into the side or into the back of the spinning BMWs. He's now 1.2 seconds behind Mika Petouche. But as this race will continue to ebb and flow with this battle at the front of the field and everyone else's battles and their strategies, with drivers having momentum at different stages as the tyres and the fuel start to burn and wear down, it just makes things a little bit more challenging. And of course, especially in this hypercar division, having no traction control or ABS, the mistakes can slowly start to creep in. I say that, a bit of rear locking into turn 5 for Matteo Bouquet. And they're the sort of little moments that you start to have near the end of a stint, when those tyres and those brakes as well are really starting to just feel the heat and feel the punishment they've been through in the opening 30 minutes.
Yeah, well, remember what we said before about thermals, and talking about not only tyre temps, engine temps, brake temps are also important. Even with full race materials, silicon carbide, carbon fiber, you name it, best materials that you can get in a racing machine, you still have an operating window. You still have a strict limit on how much you can push those materials before they start to lose their luster. You're very lucky with these sort of carbon ceramic or silicon carbide, whatever material they're using, depends, sort of varies in the composition, but you have a window of operation with these brakes. You go outside of that window, they're too cold, the pads don't grip. They just slide. It's almost as if you're trying to grab a cold plate that's falling past you at 50 miles an hour. You're going to lose your grip pretty fast. too hot and you get some brake fade. So you're just literally burning away at the material, and that's where you get the brake smoke coming from. If you've ever been to a real life racetrack and you've seen high powered racing machines go at it, you do see a lot of brake smoke. That is the actual material of the brake pads deteriorating. So you need to be mindful of those limits.
Yeah, you certainly do. Of course, brake fade is probably the worst of the two and the one you don't want the most, because of course you start to go deeper and deeper into corners and eventually they will go kaput and you will have no braking at all, and you'll head straight on into the wall. And you can see this traffic now is going to really affect Bouquet as they're side by side between Cook and Stegning. They're free wide through turn 10. There's contact. Stegning sent round. I think he's got straight into the wall as well. And from third place in the LMGT3 category, he's lost his rear wing. He's going to be out of the race. And Bouquet went straight on as well into turn 10. Turn 11. And that's allowed Cook now back by. And that has given Patouche a big breath of fresh air and has just relieved all that pressure off his shoulders as the Peugeot driver now with a lot of work to do. But that 3 into 1 did not go. And unfortunately for Franklin Stegning, he came off the worst. And that's going to see him out of this race, I think. And unfortunately, lose all the points he could have potentially gained and got his best result of the season.
Well, he's still on the track at the very least. He hasn't just jumped out to the pit lane and called it a day. He is still going to progress forward. And so that does make me wonder if he's still going to give it a shot. Try and give it a little bit of fight. Especially with the fact that some drivers are much further out. But no, just you can see cresting over, going straight around and slamming into the tyre wall. Yeah, I think that could be curtains. And there you go. So we lost a rear wheel. Game over.
Yep, game over. You're not going to get that repaired in 36 minutes without any form of suspension or a rear tyre on the right-hand side.
Oh, what was that? That was Wazerock and Vickers just going at it with each other. And Wazerock goes round. I'm not sure if there was a contact between the two cars or just a snap. It's tough to tell from the camera angle, but I know that Lexus is not going to be happy. And similar to what we're seeing with Bouquet, who is now driving for his life, effectively. He's running super aggressive now, trying to make up time. And you can see that again in his dynamics and his driving style being so radically different. He's not going to be happy. Neither of them are going to be happy. And one thing they've got to be so careful of is not overcompensating and over driving the car, because you're going to either burn it up or you're going to be spun round the wrong way.
Yeah, he certainly will, and especially for that final corner, the rear left takes a big hit in, of course, heat and also overall tyre wear, and you've got to make sure you're just able to hold on to the car through there as the rear of the car will just be sliding all the way through. But over the course of that last lap, Bouquet seemed about 0.4 of a second quicker than Mika Patouche, and we are really starting to see the Peugeot get the grip between his teeth and just start to attack, especially now that Patouche is in a bit of traffic as it currently stands. He's just made it past there on Wyatt Spencer, and also Roland Sux as well has just lapped Wyatt in the LMP2 division. But for Bouquet, he now needs to capitalise as quickly as he possibly can and get past these LMP2 traffic and these LMP2 runners as Waldridge goes round as well. It's seeming that now the tyres are starting to fade, the mistakes are really starting to creep in here, Ben.
Well, think about the actual layout of the track as well. You've got so much negative and positive elevation that any tyre issues, any mechanical grip issues, they are going to be exacerbated massively. You feel that mechanical grip go when you are cresting over hills, when you're going over light bumps on the course, and also when you are in compression, when you're in an incline and you get more mechanical grip, you get that boost. So think of it almost like a force multiplier. When you have less grip and you push the car, you're going to snap into and hit that limit much, much faster because the mechanical grip is getting so much more emphasis as we go around the course.
Yeah, it certainly is, and it's all just about trying to manage that left-hand side of the car and make sure it all stays cool, and also just doesn't really lose too much tread or wear too highly. And also just the fact of you got to make sure that you also have those hand side tyres as well heated up, because really the right-hand corners, well, the left-hand turns which heat up that right-hand side, they're all slow speed, so you don't really get as much grip. So there's a big offset in that overall car dynamic and the car balance, because heading through one corner, you could feel a little bit of understeer, the car not wanting to rotate, especially through those slow speed hairpins where those, of course, tyres are going to be quite cold. And then through, like here with Bouquet, into turn 11 on that left-hand side of the car, they'll be overheating. And you then see the rear of the car start to pendulum round on you. It really is just a big guessing game into each corner of how the grip feels and what the car's going to do, and you've got to be able to predict that to give you the best results possible, especially in these later stages where it's easier to overheat or undercook those tyres as the tread dissipates from that tyre. So it is all just about drivers being able to balance that game and monitor how those tyre temps are doing, as a few of the LMP2s are now coming into pit lane, one of them being Vickers, and I think we're going to see Wiesrock as well coming into the pits.
Fundamentally, it comes back to what we said at the start. This is a track where you need to have 100% faith in your car. You need to know how that car is going to react corner to corner. You need to know how it's going to react when you're going uphill, downhill, cresting, or in compression. You have to have faith in your machine, and you need to really understand it and not try to do something that it can't do. So, unfortunately, this is a track that is very punishing to get wrong. And we're seeing that here. So, Wooldridge in the pits, and he has got a penalty as well. So, unfortunate turn of events. Things going from bad to worse for him on this situation. And you can see that's the LMP2 hovering into place there, almost levitating, gliding through. But some races, this is going to be one to forget.
Yeah, it certainly is going to be for the likes of Wooldridge, stagnating from what could have been. He was on for a third place. He was quite a way clear of Di Catania. And unfortunately for him, he just sees himself falter at that hurdle, as of course Di Catania will need these points in his battle against Timmy Lettinen. A big lead for Timmy, a total of 36 points. But now with him not attending and Di Catania getting a podium, that will be a big switch in that standings for the LMGT3 category as well. And for Roland Sux, of course, beating Lovrek and also Cook, he'll bring that gap out once more at the top of the LMP2 standings. But yeah, it is certainly going to be a race to forget for some. And then for others, potentially like Patouche, winning your first race of the season, same with Ramsey as well, it'll be a race that you want to remember forever.
Yep, and now it's time for the almost turning point of the race. Now, this is where we're starting to see more cars, if they haven't done so already, heading into the pits. And this is going to mean a couple of things. One, it's going to mean that racers that were previously separated are now going to reconverge on the pace. And also, this is for many drivers where we're going to start seeing them make a judgment call. Specifically, for how hard they want to push towards the end. How much they have left in the tank, physically, resource-wise, and mentally, about how much they want to make out of this race. Take Bouquet, for example. He's got a very difficult choice to make, and we've been following him for a lot of this race today, but his story tonight has been something special. He went very aggressive, it didn't pan out, he fell behind, he had a couple of moments, and now he stands almost 4 seconds away from Patouche. He could either push forward, try and really put the foot down, put the pedal to the metal and on the grindstone. He has the kit for it. You can see he's running a medium soft combo on the front axle to really get that turn in. He could extract the pace, but the question is, how much pace could he extract, and would the risk be worth it? At this point, I don't know. I genuinely don't know. So he's going to have to make that call.
He certainly is. It's all about the risk versus the reward. And also something to note as well, it's starting to get a little bit overcast as well over this circuit in the Algarve, so that could potentially play a threat on potential strategies if a little bit of rain does start tumbling down onto the circuit. have to wait and see. But yeah, it's all about just how these drivers now go on against their risk and rewards. And of course, Batush now having this big advantage over Bouquet. He's somewhat out of that undercut window, so he can play around with his strategy ever so slightly, maybe extend by an extra lap compared to Bouquet and see what he can do. Of course, they're going to be quite low on fuel at the moment. They're both their energy around about 10 to 12% each, so they're not going to be able to make it for, I would say, another 4 laps. So they'll be in pit lane ever so shortly. But for Batush, he's got that advantage over Bouquet of, even if he does take a bit more fuel on board as well, he's then able to continue and then also get to the end safely and not have to worry about any Lyco or doing anything of the sort, and being able to hold on to that lead with, of course, that extra fuel on board. Is actually Bouquet, I think, has made another mistake as he's now dropped 6 seconds back to Batush.
Yep, he just made a slight off. Luckily not catastrophic, no gravel involved, but went into the runoff at the 3rd sector, so dropped himself yet another couple of seconds. And I think that call is going to start being more in the favour of a conservative finish, although he does still have a chance to push for it, and you don't know what could happen. He's got 36 seconds behind him from Nepotekit, so he's not got any worries about falling into 3rd, short of a catastrophic error. But Bouquet is still going to be wrestling with that choice. There's still half an hour in it. It's not like we are in the final 10 minutes or so. There's still time in it here, but it looks like Bouquet has really spent a lot of his energy, physical and mental, in the first half of the race, and now he's sort of floating along. So as you see now going through, big moment here potentially coming up, and now it's going to be a big question mark over many races. We'll take a quick look around and see exactly how the rest of our field is doing. Out of our 3 classes, we see Cook having a bit of a moment, as I believe he is chasing down the Porsche of Nepotekit. Might be a lap down there, but certainly not down in spirit. 10 seconds between himself and Lovric, but so Lovric has got a lot on his plate. He wants to prove himself, because Lovric has never finished lower than 2nd. Out of the 3 races he's attended, never finished lower than 2nd. It's 2 seconds and a 1st place in the round before last. So has got the moxie, but it's just about whether he can keep bringing it home. Meanwhile, Cook has also got a near flawless podium record, and Lovric actually just needs to get more results on the board, because then he'll start getting considered for drop rounds and the like. It's just got to be way up.
He certainly will, of course. It's the drop rounds, of course, do then add that element, which, I mean, of course, F1 had it back in the in the late 80s and early 90s as well, of course, where you drop a few rounds and they will be your worst results. So if you're constantly on the podium, or if you constantly win races, 2 of those races or race wins, if you did get a perfect streak of 100%, won't count. And then that could then put you under threat from somebody whose worst results are a 5th and a 6th. And they've then kept all their podiums, all their race wins, and that's what makes championships like this even better, with the fact that, yes, someone may dominate a season, but it rewards consistency. And if you have a poor result at a certain round and the rest are consistent, you drop less points overall, and in terms, take that championship lead away.
Well, I like drop rounds for the simple reason of people have lives. People live their own lives, the day-to-day. I mean, we saw it with Spencer. So it's not like he's got a dedicated studio there. Real person living their life, and got people who's in the same building and in the same house. As simple as that. So I think drop rounds gives a lot of flexibility. And I know firsthand, personally, I have had times where I haven't been able to compete in races, and as much as I'd absolutely love to, but drop rounds gives you that chance. It gives you that little bit of flexibility that sometimes you just need. And so it still gives you a chance to be in the running. Even if you can't always be there every single round, you do have a little bit of breathing room. And sometimes that is just a little bit of support, almost, for the drivers.
Yeah, it certainly does, and of course it can help someone like Timmy Lettinen in the LMGT3 Championship. Of course, is not here tonight, and he's gone off. He said he's getting. I think he said saying he has to do something tonight, and that now gives him that flexibility to be able to, unfortunately, miss this race. Of course, he would not want to, but it gives him that opportunity to do so, and that will be a drop round, and he doesn't have to worry about it because it doesn't go to his whole championship proceedings, and the races that he did participate in will stay as they are. So it does allow these drivers just to maybe make things a little bit more flexible and just focus on things and getting them all the way to the end of the season, and also being able to give them, if they're on a poor run of form, a race off, and then they can regroup, regenerate for a week later, and come back for it, as we now see Patouche and Bouquet into pit lane, and Patouche just made it with 0.1 laps, of energy left in the tank. Any further around the circuit, and we could have been talking about him running out of fuel for a second week in a row.
That is down to the wire, and I would have thought that he'd actually dial that back a bit, show a little bit of restraint after what happened before. But the other curiosity is, look where Bouquet came in. Look at timings-wise Bouquet is. And now it is going to be exacting a bit of a master plan as the two come out in parallel here at the pit lane. The fight is back on. He brought that gap down to 2.2 seconds into the pit lane. He got a faster exit out. And now these two, once again, they reignite their fire. They light their engines. And Bouquet's going to get first jump. The tables have turned in a strategic call of mastery and nothing short of a brilliant setup and payoff for the Peugeot.
That was spectacular there from Bouquet. Hustled all the way after making those mistakes to get back within touching distance of Patouche. And he didn't even need to get it done on the circuit. He did it in the pit lane. I think he just took a little bit less on the energy front. Did you see Patouche to the inside of Cook? Is there going to be contact there? No, he's just going to be able to hold on and keep away from that LMP2 car as they now battle down into turn 7. But we know that Peugeot is faster. He has been over the previous few laps. And as Patouche potentially just seen a maiden race victory here in Season 2, gone slipping once more, and once again, it's going to be down to the fuel front. And I think what also cost him was that Bouquet was able to get so close because Patouche had to Lyco all the way back to the pit lane on that final lap, or he would have been out of fuel and out of things altogether. So for Bouquet, I think he's just come through a stroke of luck. And that's exactly what you do. You make your own luck in these races. And with 21 minutes to go, the Ferrari's got all the work to do for the rest of this race.
This is something that I love, and a phrase I love is, the more I practice, the luckier I get. And it really is a true paradigm. Now, both of these drivers are absolutely formidable racers. Like Patouche, he held his own and put on a defensive masterclass in the first half of this race. But what has really sold him, not just here, but in other rounds as well, so far, has been that resource management. I think it's very easy to get swept up in the battles as they happen, and really, I mean, it's racing, and you absolutely love giving it your all in a race and attacking and defending like your championship depends on it, because it most certainly does. But I think the undoing here for Patouche on this one has been that resource management, and it's where Bouquet was able to snatch a victory from the jaws of defeat here. But with 20 minutes to go, will it stay?
That is certainly going to be the question. But look at that, he's already eked 1 second away from Patouche. Of course, Nepoteka now coming out of pit lane, but he won't be under threat from Hendrik de Vries. And I think this has been the poorest showing we've seen from our championship leader in the hypercar division. And I think he's no longer going to be the championship leader after the result this evening, because of course it was 3 points separating Nepoteka and Bouquet heading into the race, and now Bouquet with that race victory compared to Nepoteka in second, we're going to have a big swing in the standings. And for the first time this season, Nepoteka is going to be off the top of the pile. But it has been a really disappointing evening. We've not talked about it much, have we, Ben, about the Porsche driver? But by all things considered, with the standard he's set, especially at the start of this season, this has been such an abysmal night for him.
Yeah, and it's all relative. It's all in perspective. Now, he's still on the podium. Let's get that right. He's still doing on paper, a good performance. The issue here is compared to the form that we saw prior to the season break, it's really, this isn't the Nepoteket we saw from the first half of the season. He's currently 50 seconds behind Patush and Bouquet, so this has been a race to forget for him, and it is going to be the first time, well, it's going to be his lowest finish so far. Remember, 4 first places and a second last round, and now it's going to be looking like a 3rd place here. So hopefully this isn't the start of a trend for him, because I know he is certainly fighting tooth and nail, and he does still have results to fall back on, but the problem is, as the rest of the field starts to catch up and starts to continue bringing their A game towards the end of the season, he needs to get that front row form back.
He certainly does. He just needs to potentially regroup. I mean, we had that week off last time out, but after last time out in Brazil to regroup, but it just seems it hasn't worked. Potentially, this may be one of the stronger tracks, not only for him, but the weaker tracks, not only for him, but for the Porsche as well. Of course, it's a very difficult circuit to master, and you need a certain driving style to be able to be fast around this track. Of course, with how different each corner is, and especially through those slower speed, longer corners, you need to be a bit more on the smooth side, not on the ragged edge. Yep. And that could be where Nepoteket potentially goes wrong, and it, unfortunately for him, has correlated into this poor performance by his standards. And it is a very difficult circuit to master because of all the undulation, the off camber, the on camber. That you can't even set up a car right, really, for a corner, because each one is completely different. So if you do it for one, you're going to be completely out of whack in the setup for the next corner. So it's all about just trying to find that middle ground.
Yes, finding the middle ground is the most important thing, and with such a variance of track as this one, you're quite right. You can never truly set up for every situation, and this track is one that puts it to the test. Now, I'm willing to sort of give the benefit of the doubt, suspend my disbelief, because we saw in the classification round Nepoteket wasn't first, but after that classification round, that's when they started their streak. So I think it could very easily be just an acclimation period. Maybe Nepoteket isn't the one to be firing on all cylinders right out the way. Maybe they take a little bit more to get fully into race trim and get themselves back fighting at the front. I'm willing to believe that, because we have the classification round versus round 1 to prove that. So hopefully we do see that return, of course, when we head out next week to Spa. But it's going to be a proving ground for him. He needs to show that he can bring it back and bring the fight to Patush and Bouquet, who look to be, at least tonight, in a league of their own in the hypercar division.
They certainly do. And actually, about that classification round, Qatar and Portimao are very similar in corner types. Maybe not with the off-camber and the undulation, but it's a lot of long, slow-speed corners. And it seems like the Porsche does struggle. And of course, other than Brazil, that's the only time we've seen Nepoteket struggle. And of course, this circuit's very much like Brazil with the slow-speed corners as well in the middle sector. All about the straights, and that middle sector is really where Nepoteket seems to lose his time. So I think it could just be a fact that the Porsche and potentially himself struggle in those slower speed corners. And that's why we've not seen him as strong in these previous, well, in the previous 2 rounds now included tonight, and that classification round, because overall it's a fundamental car issue, and potentially himself as well, just not liking those slower corners and having the bravery and the confidence in those higher speed corners that we've seen at the likes of Bahrain and also Imola as well, which has given him that upper hand.
Let's hope that Spa brings a little bit of life back into that Porsche, because we know he's got it. We know that he has it in the tank. It just needs to be let out again. And I know we focused a lot on the hypercars, but a lot of the rest of the field has spaced themselves out majorly. And we are seeing a little bit of interaction. Oh, here's Nepoteket on the side of, I believe that's Vickers right here. And you can see the flash of frustration from the Cream Egg Mobile as they both come out of the hairpin. And you do have, as well as that, Gary Barham, who's like a fly on the wall. He's privy, he's spectator to the whole ordeal while he's kept a clean run of his own. But the GT3s, the LMP2s, barring a couple of instances, as we mentioned earlier, most of them are fully isolated from each other, and they're just focused on getting their head down and getting race done. Even Suk's 34 seconds away from Tomas Lovrek. So, again, Suk's continuing to show his absolute dominance here in the Algarve.
Yeah, he certainly is. Of course, he unfortunately hasn't won in the previous 2 rounds due to some mistakes. Of course, was on track to win it at, of course, Brazil, and then made a mistake in that rain. And unfortunately, that then really did put pay to his streak and may have knocked his confidence ever so slightly, but he's come here after that week break. He's been able to regroup, and he's just been a class above the rest in that LMP2 field. Of course, still 13 minutes to go, but with Suk's not having those wet weather conditions to play with and having a 35-second lead over Tomas Lovrek, he certainly seems to be the man to beat still in that LMP2 category. And ever since Lovrek's mistake and the damage he sustained, he's just not been able to keep up with the pace of Roland in that LMP2 field.
Yep, and Roland really is the bar right now. Championship pace, that's the bar that everyone needs to be reaching. Now, Lovrek's got close moment to moment. Cook has also been bringing his A game and putting down some good times. Those three have been almost separate from the other racers in LMP2. They've got their own microcosm of the racetrack in a way, because Vickers, Weissrock, Spencer, you look at their times, it's at least a second slower than those front three. So it is very much a toss-up. The only, I guess, outlier, and without wanting to say wildcard, because we have Spencer for that already, and his own set of rules with that, is Goya. We didn't get to see him tonight, but Goya is a bit of a hard one to read for me.
Yeah, it is a bit of a difficult one for Goya. Of course, coming up to that LMP2 field, of course, I mean, he was so strong in the LMGT3, so for some reason it just doesn't make sense why he's made that switch, unless he just wanted something different after taking a few rounds out and just knew the championship wasn't on. But he was the real contender heading into Imola with Timi Lehtinen and Di Catania, and after then, of course, wasn't no-showed the last few rounds, and now he's decided to go up to the LMP2. So I'm quite surprised by it, Ben, but we'll see what his thinking is, and potentially he could be just focusing on maybe making a challenge for that title in potentially a season or two to come, and it's just using the rest of this season to get up to speed with the LMP2 and get used to racing action in it.
Yep, and I'm always willing to sort of give it the chance. I think Goya could be a similar situation to Lovrek. Maybe not to the same extent, or maybe even more. I think Goya is an unproven entity right now, or at least hasn't had the consistency to show that full ability yet. And they have had their flashes of brilliance, absolutely. We know that Goya has got some pace on tap, and that's not just speaking from here at our events at GRDC. And oh, that was a naughty moment. That was Iro getting spun by the Ferrari of Mika Patush, just having the nose in on the inside, and unfortunately that's a spin for the Mercedes AMG 180. I don't think he's going to be happy with that by any stretch, but Goya is an unproven entity as of right now in my books. Had flashes of brilliance, also had moments where things haven't quite gone his way, so need to see more before a full judgment can be made.
Yeah, we certainly will do. We'll certainly need a full judgment of Goya's pace and his potential in that LMP2. Hopefully we'll attend next week in Spa, and from there we can really get to grips of how he is doing. And that actual incident with Iro Vizuri has put Patush with a lot of front-end damage. So that's going to really hurt his aerodynamic grip, especially through a corner like this, the final corner, a high-speed corner where you need that aero. And it's just really unfortunate to see that Patush has had another race victory now slip through his fingers, and he will see himself now just have to probably settle for that second place. But it just shows how fast they've been over Nepotekin as well, because that gap now 52 seconds. To think only about 20 minutes ago, we were talking about how it was 17 seconds. So for Bouquet and Patouche, they really have been a class above the rest, even though Nepoteket has the fastest lap of the race in those hypercar division.
Yep, and it really is, again, going back to that consistency and those other elements. And why we are sort of disappointed in Nepoteket's performance tonight, but we know that he has the ability to bounce back. It's because we've seen that, and the pace is there. The pace is on tap. A little bit of an update. Missouri has DNF'd from the circuit following that collision with Patouche, and honestly, I'm not surprised, because that was certainly compromised his race and or gave him some damage which might be considered unrecoverable. So for sure, stewarding will be taking a look at that and will be acting accordingly, as the same with all incidents that are logged over the course of the race. We've got a pretty robust stewarding process here, so pretty much everything does get reviewed and looked at, and that of course has a tangible effect on the standings, be that points or time implemented penalties.
Yeah, it is certainly going to be up to question what happens now to Mika Patouche after causing that DNF of Ira Fizuri. I don't think it'll be a time penalty, because he'll need a whole minute time penalty for that to displace a position, but he could get potentially something for next week, maybe a 5-second time penalty that he might have to serve alongside his actual race time, and that could then affect him dearly. So we'll have to wait and see. But of course, in these last 10 minutes of the race, I think that most of these drivers, with how big the gaps are between one another, it's all just going to be about bring this one home, focus on getting this one to the line and seeing yourself out and picking up some strong points, because of course no matter where you finish, you're picking up some points. And of course for Fizuri, Stegning, they unfortunately are the only retirements of this race, and both of them through collisions that weren't even their fault.
Yeah, man, of course, want to say we are the comms, but stewarding will always be the final say of the stewarding teams themselves. So from where we see it, in some cases, pretty cut and dry, call it as we see. But keep in mind, that is not final. That is provisional only, and the stewards will always be the ones with the final say on standings and order. Key points, though, as we head into the final 5 minutes soon. Most drivers fully spaced out, just want to bring it home. There could be a couple of chances to capitalise on mistakes. Say, Di Catania trying to close as much of that 10-second gap to 40 as they can, but eyes very much on the front end, because Patouche is 2.7 seconds out. Now, this is a tough one, because Patouche, as we know, doesn't necessarily keep the best track of their resources. The virtual energy has been their Achilles heel time and time again. So are they going to push, or are they going to play it safe and secure the P2?
That is going to be the big question about if it's all down to going for the push to try and catch up to the car in front, or just settle onto their position. And of course, for Forty and Ramsey, it is now really between them, because Patouche won't be able to catch up to Bouquet with that damage, you would think. They're setting roughly similar lap times, but he's not gaining enough at this current rate if he wants to get that move done. And for Alistair Ramsey and Jordan Forty, I think the same could be said there as well. And of course, in the LMP2 field, everyone's around about 15 seconds back from one another. So it is really just seeing this one out, keeping your car cool, keeping it under temperature and not making those mistakes. But of course, when you somewhat back off the pace and dial back everything, and you lose a little bit of focus as you try to settle in to bring it home, more mistakes could be made, because you're not as attentive to the car and you're not in that high pressure moment. You could then potentially just see yourself have a lapse in judgment and have a spin, or potentially go into a wall.
It's almost getting lulled into a false sense of security, isn't it? Especially when you have about 4 laps to go, give or take. You can take your eye off the ball, and all it takes is a couple of tenths of a second to take your eye off the ball, misjudge an approach into a corner, and then boom, you're in the runoff, or you're in the gravel, even worse, grass, etc., wall. And any advantages that you've gained are going to be almost immediately nulled.
Yeah, you certainly are. So it is now just going to be all about trying not to fall into that false sense of security, but it's very difficult to do. Of course, if you say someone like Nepoteki or even Lovrek, it's all about trying to potentially use even the LMGT3 cars or the hypercars as something to push on into as such at a pace where it's not 100%, but it's not enough where you feel safe. You lose that focus ever so slightly, and you can use them as a little barrier. Say, by this corner, I want to catch up to, say, Dan Wilson in the LMP2 if I'm near the back of him, or you give yourself mini goals within the race to keep your brain occupied, to make sure that you remain focused on the race and those mistakes don't creep in. But then on the other hand, if you're at a place like Bouquet or say Borgensen, where you've got really no one in front of you, you're in a spot above her and you ain't got that mini goal to set. And then you look at, can I improve on my fastest lap? So it really is just try and set those mini goals, especially at these later stages, to stop those mistakes from creeping in.
It's almost like having a staircase. You're not going to be any good if you're trying to jump floor to floor. And this is why if you're looking at practicing and improving, you don't want a time trial that's 3 seconds faster. You want one that's 3/10 faster, because then you slowly build your way up to those faster times. Borgerson's situation is no different here, because he hasn't got anyone in front of him for almost an entire minute. The big issue for him here is that there's nothing attainable. There's nothing within his reach as a reference point, and so the best he can do is just lap in his own pocket, basically with nothing to push or pull him forward in any meaningful way. Contrast that with something like the fight we've seen with Bouquet and Patouche. Now, these two have been fully giving each other 110% and giving each other the full fight, as Roland Sukes has actually gone off in the gravel. And while that may be a moot point with 45 seconds still between himself and Lovrek, it's still a mistake and it's still a concern. But seeing that fight at the front, that is one of the core examples of two rivals pushing each other forward, because without that they would not have built up such a substantial gap. They're not afraid to really drive each other hard.
Yeah, exactly that. They're the two cars really at this point still squabbling for position, and Bouquet, of course, seeing Patouche getting closer and closer and closer behind, will now have that just in that mind that he still needs to keep going. He can't relax. He has to keep putting in lap after lap after lap consistently and make sure that Patouche doesn't get close enough to go for that move. But next lap will be the final lap of this race. And for Mathieu Bouquet, I think he will just have this one in the bag unless some traffic comes his way on the final lap that unfortunately brings the Ferrari into play, or potentially a mistake comes his way as well. As actually Bouquet did lose quite a bit of time there, being stuck behind I think one of the LMP2s, and we could actually at this point still have a race on for that race lead between the Peugeot and the Ferrari. It actually just seems under braking that Patouche all of a sudden has been able to find something different and be super confident to bring that gap down.
Could this be the final card being played in his hand right now? I mean, looking at the energy, it looks like they're on fairly even keel. If anything, Patouche has slightly more in the tank. So they certainly have enough to bring it to the end of the race. They're unlikely to burn that much between now and the finish line. But you got such a narrow margin between the two that it really is all to play for. Comes up behind, I believe that's Vickers here. And Bouquet's feeling the pressure. He's back within that 1 second moment. And things could get a little bit dicey, as once again that rear axle, you can see Bouquet, the confidence is wavering. The rear axle is wiggling, and Patouche is teetering on getting within fighting range.
It certainly is, as of course we are now on that final lap of the race. I think he might just fall short, but with Kirk and Di Catania in contention of getting in the way, and it actually seems that he's getting in the way of Patouche, not Bouquet. Yeah, he got boxed in there by Di Catania, and unfortunately for Patouche, all that hard work on the course of that penultimate lap has just become undone. And for Matteo Bouquet, as long as he keeps this one on the road, he can relax a little bit more and just rest that little bit more easy for the final part of this. That we're heading into the final sector now. And he just needs to now bring this one home, as I think a car has just spun in front of him. No, it was just the way the hill made it go down. And that's actually Sebastian Borgensen, who's going to be nearly a lap down at this stage. But look how slow the Mustang and Borgensen are going. He's going to hold up Bouquet ever so slightly, but it will not be enough. So for the Frenchman, it was, of course, a late drama win against Petouche in Brazil. The Ferrari ran out of fuel then, and this time around it was won in the pit lane. He once again reigns supreme over Petouche, and he wins the Portuguese race here in LMU for the GRDC World Sprint Challenge Season 2. Petouche put up the fight, it just wasn't enough, and unfortunately that one costly error in the pit lane has cost him dear, as Roden Sux now comes back to where he once was and takes that win in the LMP2 category. He continues his strong form, which after that small knock in contention. And here we see Alistair Ramsey as well on his final tour. But for Matteo Bouquet, he takes the championship lead and also makes it 2 wins in the past 2 races.
Immaculate form from all of the leaders today, and even under immense pressure in the case of that ongoing hypercar fight, this has been a spectacular race for the red division. Now for the blues and the greens, for the LMP2s and the GT3s, it's been a lot more static, but this has been a safe round for many, and we've still had some great drivers emerge as the cream of the crop. Sux coming across the line, indomitable in terms of standing and current form. He is looking to go into the second half of this season with no one standing in his way. Ramsey as well, really showing his pace here today and showing his consistency even in rapidly evolving track conditions. So he's certainly going to be happy with that. This is going to be his second win on the docket. Of course, first one being in round 3, and now flipping the script from DNFs, P10s, P9s to now his second win on the board, and he's certainly going to be happy to take that extra leg up. Look at him go.
Lovely bit of donuts there from Alistair Ramsey, and that signals off a very good drive from himself. He returns to the top step of the podium for the second time this season. And for him, the Mustang just seems to work well around a circuit like this, especially with that long main straight where we know it is so fast, and he has capitalized on that one. But for Bouquet, Sux and Ramsey, they are in sheer delight. And as well for Bouquet, he'll be loving life as well, because he now takes that championship lead in the hypercar category. And we're going to potentially see if we can get any of the top 3 in for a chat. We know Sux does like to come in for a chat, so hopefully we do get to hear from the LMP2 winner.
Yeah, well, we pinged out to them, and we're going to hopefully see what they have to say. But has been a little bit of a flipping of the script for a couple of drivers. Some who have seen themselves towards the top end of the standings, not quite having the same luck. And in the same light, you have some drivers who are in middle of the pack to maybe the lower half, getting their time in the sun. I mean, Ramsey, as we said, second win on the docket in a history of P9s and 10s. So this is massive for him, and I really want to see what he has to say.
Yeah, so do I, of course. He's actually just joined the waiting room, but it's one of those things where you can have bad results, and all it takes is 1 or potentially 2. Well, the 2 rounds that he has won, all it takes is for things to go your way, maybe a few drivers like Lettinen not showing up, or just the car working wonders, and you're gelling with that circuit beautifully, that you do end up coming out on top. And again, it's you make your own luck, and for Alistair Ramsey, he's done that once again after what has been a season that hasn't really shown consistency. Could this be the one that potentially starts it?
Yeah, well, say hopefully we get to see that interesting turnaround now. Unfortunately, Roland from the LMP2 side of things isn't going to be able to join us. We have yet to hear from Bouquet, but in the meantime, I think it's only fair that we bring him in. Man of the hour of the GT3s. He didn't get that much in the limelight on screen, but he certainly stole the show for his respective division. Alistair Ramsey, let's get him in here and see what he has to say. Oh, that's quite an entrance.
A dramatic entrance as well.
That is worth a Discord Nitro. I had to quickly change it because my other one isn't very my normal one isn't very PC, not PC, YouTube friendly, let's say.
Okay, well, it's good to see you. Anyway.
Thank you. I like what you've done. I've never been into the commentary interview area. I like what you've done with the place.
Yeah, spruced it up, had a bit of time over the summer. Thought we'd give it a little sprinkle, bit of pizzazz. But
I'm loving the rich mahogany.
But thoughts coming out of that race. Initial impressions, obviously, great run of form tonight. Absolutely immaculate. How you feeling?
Yeah, really good, really good. It was a good fun race. I'm really happy that my teammate Jordan 40 brought home second as well. So yeah, 1-2 for LPR Racing. So yeah, really good. Really enjoyed it. I do like Portimao, and even though the Mustang doesn't look like your stereotypical car to be good around the twisties and undulations, it seems to have found a bit of a set-up sweet spot, and it performed really well.
Yeah, you've similarly gone into the sort of next point, which I was going to ask is what was the feeling like heading into the race? Because you mentioned it yourself there. The Mustang doesn't seem like the car to be so friendly with the circuit here that we ran today. So was there any nerves? How are you feeling about it in general?
Oh yeah, there's always a bit of nerves, because especially the first sort of couple of corners, and you always think, if there's a bit of issues with the LMP2s at the start, they might affect your race. So you're sort of thinking about that, and then sort of the tight right second corner always opens up, and Frankie had a little look, and you sort of try not to hit the LMP2s, but then you're looking in your mirror, so basically you're looking forward, backwards, left, right. But yeah, it's all good fun.
Yeah, and of course, there's a really good result out there today. So we've had an interesting run of form over the course of the season. We were saying just before you arrived, because you had P9, P10 start things off, then you had a win in the third round, and now here you are back again, second time total with a win here. So in terms of second half of the season, you may have seen the tracks or just in general, what's the outlook? Is this going to be a trend? Are we hoping this is going to be a trend going forward?
Oh, obviously, you want it to be an upward trend, but I just take it race by race, do my thing. I like, do my testing, do my practicing, get the setup dialed. The first couple of races of the season, I was in the Aston Martin, and I've been in the Aston Martin for a long time, and had a couple of bad results, and I did that. I don't remember on Drive to Survive where Danny Ricciardo jumps off the cliff into the water, and it's all about him switching to the Renault. That was me, but switching to the big fat American Mustang. Thought I need a change. And it seems to, in the races that have taken place so far, it seems to be the right choice.
Yeah, and how's the car felt? Because you make a valid point in that, saying I think first, I think of the Aston, but see with that switch now to the Mustang, how different has it felt going from something like the Aston to now the Mustang, which your big American boat of a car?
I mean, it's great because I get to bully people. That's a good thing. Everyone just seems to give it a wide berth. I mean, it was good at Le Mans. I mean, to be fair, I was giving half the track a slipstream with it. The drive really similar, to be honest with you. I've always liked the front engine cars, the big boats. So the Mustang seems to be in a sort of a good sweet spot at the moment in the LMU ranking. It's good on fuel, it's okay on tires, good top line, good top speed, and then once you sort of unlock the setup and how the car wants to be driven, I think it's a good all-rounder, which is what I like.
Yeah, well, you seem to have adjusted well. You went from a cruiser to a bruiser, but you've still done just fine. Now, before I let you go, before I pass it over to Max, final question from me. Next round, Spa. As a track, how do you feel about it?
I mean, GT3s at Spa, I think everyone's a sim racer, as I'm surely done GT3s at Spa in their sim racing career.
Right
so
passage.
I'm expecting it to be quick. I'm expecting it to be busy. I expect everyone to be giving it everything, because it's a track that everyone likes and loves. And yeah, I'm looking forward to it. And I'm hoping Eau Rouge is and Radion are kind to me in the Mustang. Not tried it there yet.
One can only hope. But again, amazing result and really solid performance. So I'm going to pass it over to you, Max. Any thoughts? Any questions?
Oh yeah, a couple from me, Alistair. Of course, congratulations on that victory in the LMGT3s and loving the Undertaker style entrance. But yeah, of course, we talked to Timmy Lessman in the GT3 Challenge when he was at the start of that season about the Mustang, and he said it was very understeery, very difficult on the tyres as well. Has the more recent patches, well, of course, the 1.0 update, really balanced out that Mustang and gave it a fighting chance to the rest of the field?
I think so. It is quite understeery, but that's how I like it. So if you ever jump on board with me, you'll probably look at the steering wheel and think, oh my god, what is he doing? But yeah, I find it's to counteract it. I've got it set up in a way where I'm turning it on corner entry on the brakes, getting the back end out, and that sort of negates some of the understeer. But yeah, fundamentally it's an understeery car. But that's just what I like. If I jumped into a Porsche or a 296, it'd take me a long time to get any sort of half decent pace out of it. It's just why you drive the cars you like to drive, don't you? So it's same with the Mustang.
Yes, yeah, of course. So the front end are certainly for you, and of course, my final one, of course, as Ben mentioned, looking for the upward trend. It's been a not inconsistent season, but it's not been the most consistent either. But of course, you've had some unlucky moments in those races as well. But of course, you said you'll take it race for race. What are your expectations for Spa, like from yourself? Where are you aiming to get in that field?
As well as I can do. I'm not going to sit here and be like, oh, I want to win it, I'm going to win it. I'd like to. I always go into every race top 5. If you go top 5, I'm happy. So that's what I'm going to go in. But I'm going to go in and have a clean race and not sort of have any incidents, should I say, that have happened at the start of the season. I feel I did the 6 hours of Kota with my teammates Jordan Forty and Jordan Biddle, and then I did a LMU Championship race on Monday, and that was a bit of an eye opener with the hypercars. And I feel like that sort of training is sort of and getting used and basically just expecting the send. That's my new motto. Is expect the send with the multi-class racing. So I feel like that sort of thing's can help. So basically, long story short, to answer your question, I'm hoping the uptrend keeps on going, and I don't have any sort of the errors or mistakes that I made at the start of the season. And Spa, I will take whatever result I can get, because I'm sure there'll be lots of quick people there and lots of quick times, because everyone knows and loves Spa. So I'm expecting a good Elbazart race.
Yeah, it should be a very good race indeed. And then quickly, actually, on that point with the getting used to the traffic of the LMP2s and the hypercar, how difficult has that been, of course, coming from the likes of LMGT3 Challenge, where it's just you LMGT3 boys? How difficult has that adjustment been?
It's an eye-opener. I feel like the LM, I was focusing a lot on the LMGT3 Championship, and I didn't really do a lot of multi-class racing. So that probably explains my first couple of races of the season. Yeah, eye opener. It's a good fun. I used to moan about multi-class, but I'm actually beginning to love it because it gives an extra element of the race, doesn't it? The LMP2s are interesting because certainly the sort of the LMP2 spec, they're not as good in the brakes. They're just a little bit faster on upper, initial acceleration. The LMGT3s keep up, and then they sort of start pulling away. So they're a different kettle of fish to sort of work with and try and, both of you get through the lap together and get lapped and unlapped. Do you know what I mean? So it's sort of a different challenge compared to the hypercars. But it's a good challenge. It's good fun.
Yeah, it does seem like quite a fun challenge indeed. But that's all from me. I think that's going to be all from you as well, Ben. Is it?
Yeah, it was all from me. Just brilliant stuff.
thank you very much, guys. And thank you for your commentary. It's always good to have you guys on board. It's always good. I always love watching the streams back. So thank you.
Would it be half the comms without a brilliant race, mate? Thank you very much, though. Do appreciate it. And
thanks, guys.
Thank you, mate. Take care.
Thank you.
Cheers. Bye bye.
And there you go. There is Alistair Ramsey. Doesn't look like we're going to be getting any other racers joining us. So that is where we're going to wrap it for this evening. Now, before we go, we do have to make an important announcement about the Monday Championships. Now, we have been looking forward to the next season of LMGT3 Challenge, as well as a couple of other championship ideas for the works. But there have been some issues with the 1.0 update, as we alluded to earlier. Despite hot fixes, we have had multiple issues of drivers sort of disconnecting, being unable to run the game, hard crashing entire systems. And so for that, as well as the upcoming ELMS update, the decision has been made here at GRDC to postpone the Monday Championships from rolling forward. Now, I understand this may be disappointing to some, but it does need to be said, and we're hoping that the ELMS updates and future updates do both bring the stability back, but also bring a little bit of extra variety. So we're making this, albeit quite difficult decision, for the purposes of making sure that when we do launch the LMGT3 Challenge and our other Monday Championships that we have, that they are the best they can be. They've got all the latest content, they've got all the best variety, and of course, for our actual racers and for you watching at home, it's the best that it possibly can be. So with that important announcement out of the way and a little bit of unfortunate news, that's where we are going to end it. But not without some silver lining and some ray of hope, because, as mentioned, Spa next round. Spa with GT3s. It is the rite of passage of any budding sim racer, and when you bring a multi-class to Spa, it's fireworks.
Oh, it certainly is. To be fair, I would love to see the 24 hours of Spa as a proper multi-class event with the, of course, the GT World Challenge and things. So, yeah, it's going to be a very big challenge for these drivers. It's a very narrow circuit. It's very long as well, so we could see times where the LMPH cars potentially lap the LMGT3s and then give it another lap and a half, and they're instantly back onto them again, whereas most circuits it's a couple laps later. So it does add to that challenge, and for those GT3 boys, I'm going to feel sorry for them, because they are going to have their eyes everywhere on the road, and it's certainly going to be something where they could be squabbling in their own battles, then all of a sudden two GT3 LMPH or even two LMP2s all of a sudden pounce onto the scene, and they're right there, and there's nothing they can do about them. They're constantly being overtaken. So yeah, it's certainly going to be a challenge, and it's going to be an extremely fun race to watch as well.
Yep, and we're certainly looking forward to it, but that's where we do it for tonight, folks. So thank you as always for joining. We are back in full swing for WSC, so join us same time next week where we head to Spa, and we'll be here every Wednesday for you at 8:30 p.m. UK time. Of course, translate that to your local time zone. It's Spa, it's Qatar, it's Kota, and it's Sebring to finish the season off in October. But we'll cross those bridges as they come weekly. And for you watching at home, thank you again. Big shout to all the racers, big shout to everyone who is working behind the scenes to make this championship possible, and of course to everyone who supports us, all of our patrons who make this entire server and championship possible. But that's where we go for tonight. Thank you once again, and we will see you very soon. Goodbye for now, folks, and see you next Wednesday.
Go!